Gwyneth. Another question, it is from Gwyneth, right here in the front.
Senator Vance, thank you for being here tonight and taking questions from voters. My name is Gwyneth, and I'm concerned about the federal government's overreach, especially the Department of Justice and the FBI. How will you and President Trump help control the out-of-control federal government?
Hear, hear. That is a very big question, and here's the simple principle that's going to guide President Trump and I when it comes to the administration of justice. Equal justice under law. It's very simple. We don't go after people. You don't go after people because they disagree with you. You don't try to throw a pro-life father of 7 in prison because he dared to protest. You don't throw a parent. You don't have the FBI go after them at a school board meeting because they showed up to peacefully do what parents ought to do, which is to speak up on behalf of their kids. That's the fundamental principle. And I think the question is then, how do you apply that principle in practice? Here's one thing that I'll say. The most important job, and this is a bit of a hit to my ego, but the most important job after President of the United States in the next administration, it's not me, it's who we select as Attorney General. You need an Attorney General who believes in true equal justice under law. And look, I think we've got a lot of good candidates. It's one of the reasons why, by the way, we want to get Dave McCormick elected senator from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, is because when we make that nomination, when President Trump nominates an Attorney General, we want to make sure that person can get confirmed, right? And that's a really important part. But here's what you then have to do. Because let's be honest, Merrick Garland, I think, is one of the most corrupt AGs we've ever had in this country. But it's not just Merrick Garland, right? There are some people that clearly report to Merrick Garland. I had this conversation probably about a year ago with a field officer in the FBI, and he came up to me and he said, "Look, sir, we're trying to do the right thing. You've got a lot of great law enforcement people at the FBI, but he's like, the leadership of our agency is so broken that you've got to clean house, and that's what we're going to do. We are going to." When we say drain the swamp, I mean, look, just go back a few years ago. You had the entire government. You had an impeachment, a fake impeachment that was completely oriented around the idea that Donald Trump was in bed with a foreign government. We all remember that, the Russia scam, okay? That scam was a complete lie. And even the independent Justice Department investigator basically said this is all completely made up. But here's the problem. They admit that it was made up. They admit that it distracted this country. It led to a fake impeachment. How many people have been fired from that? 0. And here's what President Trump and I are going to do when we get in there. We're going to fire the people who are responsible for the corruption of our Department of Justice. That's what we've got to do. And if you're not willing to do that, then you have no business running this country. Luckily, we've got a guy in Donald Trump who is.
So, can you record it so we can see what it looks like when you fire them? And is it that you're fired? Is it a pink slip? What does this look like?
He does actually like to do that. He does. I mean, look. One of the reasons he's one of the more famous people in the world is because he got famous firing people. And it's funny, that's the kind of person you actually want cleaning house in Washington, D.C. Because, I mean, Sage, go back to the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal, okay? And, it's so sad because these are, young people at the prime of their life. They're the very best of us. They put on the uniform, and of course, 13 of them lost their lives. And I've talked to a lot of the families, the moms and the dads, the sisters of these beautiful young Americans. And you know what they'll tell you? They're not even that, of course they're sad, but they're not angry that they lost their loved ones. What they're angry about is the lack of accountability that happened afterwards. And we have to ask ourselves, and I had to fact check this because I couldn't believe it. How many in the Department of Defense bureaucracy, senior leadership, how many people got fired after that disastrous withdrawal? 0. I mean, to people, especially those watching at home, who just want their government to function and work properly, you can't do that unless you're willing to fire the people who screw up. And that is what I think President Trump will do. As you said, Sage, he really likes to do the "you're fired" thing. And, maybe we can even turn a TV show into it, right? We'll just bring in the most corrupt people in the federal government, and we'll let Donald Trump do his thing. We'll clean house, and we'll make the people's government work for the people again.
I mean, it would be great on social media. Hashtag BTS behind the scenes. Take us back there to see it. The A word. And you know what? Hey, accountability as a parent.
Yes.
You're not going to have normal kids, good human beings, young adults, without accountability. So if we're expecting it from our children and our employers, we have to expect it at the top. That's why there's no trust, because there has been no accountability.
That's exactly right.
So I think the trust thing, and I've felt that a lot. And sometimes it's regardless of who's in office, right? What are the essential, or maybe the most immediate ways to rebuild that trust? Draining the swamp, number one. What else?
Yeah, so can I tell you a story? A good friend of mine made this observation about federal bureaucrats once. He said, most people, when they lie to you, they'll just say, well, no, that's not what I said, or they'll kind of try to distract from it, or they'll try to avoid it. But our federal officials will do what toddlers do, which is when you say, hey, you did that thing, they won't try to distract from it. They'll say, no, I didn't, you did. And I'll give you an example. So I'm a baker. I don't know if you knew this. I'm a big, my son and I, my 4-year-old in particular, we like to bake a lot of stuff. So I was making cookies with him a couple weeks ago.
I'm sorry. Yeah. How cute is that? I love that. Keep going. What do you bake?
Cinnamon rolls, chocolate chip scones. That's what we made in the past little bit. But we were actually making an Oreo cake. So like a cake, but had little chunks of Oreos in it. So I go to the bathroom, wash my hands, come back, and we had 4 Oreos sitting there, and then we have 2 Oreos. All right, I'm not an expert at math, but something doesn't add up here. And so I look at my 4-year-old, and I said, buddy, did you eat an Oreo you weren't supposed to? He said, I didn't eat him, you did. And that's how our federal leaders lie, right? And it's like you ask people, this is why I bring this up in the context of this question is, you go to somebody at the Defense Department and say, you screwed up the withdrawal from Afghanistan. They'll say, no, it wasn't, it was you. Wait a second, we weren't in power, brother. We were nowhere near the Oval Office when these decisions were made, or the Pentagon, and this is the shamelessness. And I've seen this in the context of the Afghanistan withdrawal, which happened 2 years after Biden and Harris took over. They would say, well, it's Donald Trump's fault. What? That's like my son saying, I didn't eat the Oreos, you did. It's the craziest thing. But this is what they do, and you've got to just be willing. What drain the swamp really means, you asked about that, what it really means is you investigate failure and you have accountability. Now sometimes people screw up, you give them a second chance, but you don't give them a 9th chance. And what we've got to do is investigate failure again, and when people require it, fire the people who keep screwing up. That's the only way you can return government back to the people.
I call it the A word, accountability. And
Yep.
this is, I hope it's okay that I say this. If not, we're just going to pretend like it didn't happen.
Fine.
Right? It's not
just
live.
1,000 of our closest friends.
It's fine. No. Watching the debate, by the way, he put on a clinic, did he not? I mean,
thank you.
That
was fun. I had a good time.
That was amazing. I'm like, in my next life, I will be as smart as J.D. Vance and be that quick. It was amazing to watch. One of my favorite parts, there were many, but one of my favorite parts was when you got the inevitable question about how you had previously felt and talked about Donald Trump.
Yep.
And what did he say? He said, I screwed up. I've changed my mind.
Yeah.
Basically. That's called accountability because you owned it.
Yeah.
And I really think that was overlooked because nobody else on the other ticket will ever admit, it's okay to grow. It's okay to change.
Yes, absolutely. No, it reminds me, Sage, that So, one, you're exactly right. And I actually try to make this argument to swing voters all the time. Look, you don't have to agree with everything that I say or everything that President Trump says, but he delivered peace, prosperity, rising take-home pay, and a secure border. Like, if you said in 2016 that wasn't going to happen, that's fine, but then admit that you screwed up and you got something wrong. And that's what I did. And I think that's important, is to say, oh yeah, I screwed that up. I was wrong about the guy. Also, by the way, I realized that the media lies about him to a ridiculous extent, that half the things you hear about him are straight up made up. But you know, what's so funny about this is when Biden was still running, and they were trying to distract from the fact that he clearly didn't know what the hell was going on, right? And, you know, sometimes reporters would say, oh, well, you know, clearly Joe Biden is not quite the same that he was in 2020. It's like, oh, that's putting it mildly. Or the same as he was 10 years ago. They'd be like, well, you know, the other candidates, he's getting a little up there too. Is his memory totally perfect? And it's like, whoa, wait. Donald Trump remembers what I tweeted about him at 9:12 p.m. in 2015. Like, to the word. And he still sometimes busts my chops about it, right? It's like one of the things I love about him is, you know, we joke around with each other, but the idea, like, we have right now a person with the mental competence to do the job, and it's our guy. It's not anybody on the other team. Trust me, I know.
He will never let you live that down.
Oh, no. I talked to him 4 days ago. When I talk to him every day, but a few days ago he was like, you know, I wasn't always sure about you, JD. It's like, you know, I understand, sir. I understand.
Yeah, again, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that conversation. Tell your son to get a little more creative. Like, obviously you didn't eat the Oreos. He could have blamed it on his sibling. He went to you.
Yeah,
like, let's
that's
work
right.
on this. Okay, or not. Actually,
he's only 4, so, you know. I don't know that I want him to be a better liar, though. Maybe I'm okay with him being a really bad liar. That's a good thing. I don't want him to be in politics.
No, yeah, exactly. Politics or mainstream media. Yeah. Trust us. Don't do it. Okay.